right, welcome back to the Success Blueprint. Me, Jason, we brought back our friends, Garrett and Mr. Chad Kirby. So we are doing something extremely different. We've never had 4 of us on, and we wanted to make sure all mics worked at the same time. Seems like they're doing pretty good. And anyway, we're just going to chat about some of these things that we've been talking about over the years, over the days, over the last hour, over lunch. And anyway, we'll get right to it.
Well, but before we get right to it, I just want to compliment Morgan. Morgan always thinks things into existence. And so no one had used their mic yet, but Morgan's like, we wanted to see how all 4 mics work, and they seem to be working great. Well, yeah. No one has said anything, but look, he thinks
they seem to be working.
They seem to be working perfect. It's that positivity that it's
like
real.
It.
It's real.
He's manifesting as we see.
Yeah, manifesting all 4 mics. We're here testing all 4 mics. They seem to be working great. No one has said anything, but it's going to be awesome.
As long as I can hear myself, I'm good.
Apparently, Morgan's is working, and that's what's most important. Okay.
But on a more serious note, too, like Chad and I have both been on with you guys before.
Yeah.
And like the number one hardest thing with a podcast is sticking to it. Right? So like look at how many you guys have done and how much like I watch them and like it's awesome. So thank you guys for sharing back to the world.
Yeah.
Thank you guys, because some of yours have been we get compliments all the time, but it's not because of anything we've done. We just ask a few questions and you guys have run with it, and it's been fantastic. It's been so much fun, really. It took us a while to get it started. What, like 2 years?
Yeah.
From Morgan's like, we should do a podcast. 2 years later, we just started.
That'd be good to have on a podcast.
but once it started, and we were kind of like, oh man, it's going to take quite a bit of time and a lot of effort. But honestly, we walk away thinking, man, those are our favorite days.
And
we gained so much from it.
We the first time that we scheduled this out as a 6-hour day, I was like, this is going to be draining. And then afterwards, it felt like 45 minutes, and it was like we had some of the best conversations we've had all year. And then we get to do that every single month, and that's what I told Jason. I was like, maybe we should do this more than once a month, because it's awesome. Like it's the fulfilling of what you get when you go to Arizona and you talk to high producers, and it's that sort of thing, and we get to do it here in town. So we just learned that it's December 30th today, and so let's talk about. We don't have to talk about New Year's resolutions and the cliche and things like that, but let's even go through maybe goal settings. This last podcast we were on, this guy was talking about how he believes in I'm going to butcher this, and this happened 2 hours ago, but he believes in the process instead of the outcome. And so he just works on that process and the outcome. That's something that we've been working on the last couple of weeks of pushing with our team and even my family, of just understanding what the outcome's going to be. Let's not worry about that so much as we need to worry about what we need to do to get there. So
I think that's brilliant. Sometimes where people go wrong with that is they don't understand the outcome enough. So I think the correlation there is that not one will get you all the way. You can't only be focused on outcome without process and think you're going to get there. But likewise, you couldn't only be focused on process without understanding what the outcome is. So like Chad and I talk all the time, like one of the most important things you can do is get very, very clear with the outcome, what you want, why you want it, and the emotion that comes along with that, because that's the drive that keeps you through. The process is what just simplifies your decision-making patterns to then be able to execute. But you do need both of those together. They both do need to come together.
Yeah, but that's powerful what Garrett just said there, because that is so true, that the process, sometimes people get so dialed into being process-oriented that they forget to reflect on why they're doing it. And they don't get it. You've got to have that clear in your mind so it motivates you, it drives you.
Yeah.
So how would you get that balance?
Garrett's the most process-oriented person I know. Garrett's all about process. So when you were talking about process, it's like, oh man, Garrett's going to just start crying with emotion here. He gets so excited about process. But But then he added that gold there that I think that's so important to remember is why we're going there, you know?
Yeah, if you're just in the process day to day, you can kind of miss the mark, right? You've got to have that mark still in front of you as you kind of go to the day to day and that motivation to do it. That's the hardest part is keeping consistent and doing that day after day and loving the monotony and the boredom and the things that happen day to day that'll get you the outcomes you want.
I just had I had a coach of mine the other day get me back into that understanding why, because I am so process driven. So I was all about the process, but I was struggling, and he's like, "Oh, let's back up. Like, what's your why?" Okay, there's the motivation. There's the emotion behind it to keep me going. Because even process is going to simplify it, but it's still going to be hard. There's still going to be something that happens that you have to push through.
So how do you balance that? How do you balance the process versus the outcome, vice versa? You know, how do you keep yourself focused on what you're trying to do, and then not just get focused on the outcome that you forget the processes? You know, as far as real estate and real estate agents, we set these amazing, wildly important goals, right?
Right.
And then we forget to do these daily things. And then when the quarter ends or these things happen, we're wondering why we're not at these goals. But then I agree with you when you start on these process, wouldn't the outcome take care of itself if you just follow the processes?
There's different emotion behind it when the outcome is driving you. Because if you're just doing it to do it. So what are some of the metrics that your real estate agents are working on? Okay, they're going to do these X, Y, and Z every single day, right? And if they get so focused on X, Y, and Z and forget why they're doing it and the outcome and lifestyle it's going to provide for them, then X, Y, and Z, they're not presenting or coming to it with the right level of energy.
I like that.
Yeah, I like that.
A process is just a system to remove as many obstacles as we can to create habit. But there is still going to be the required motivation to do it. So
okay,
it takes
wait. I know you're on a roll here. I don't mean to interrupt you. Okay, but what you said there, that was powerful.
Right.
So the process is the system to eliminate obstacles.
And the need to make choice.
Okay, that's so especially let's use real estate, for example. So the obstacles that you have as a real estate agent, if you have the right process in there, it doesn't mean it's going to remove opposition, but it's going to take away those obstacles that prevent you from getting there.
Yeah. So for example, somebody in the real estate world has a goal to make so many cold calls a day.
Right.
They know they don't want to make cold calls.
Right.
Yeah.
You have to remove all obstacles. So what makes that easier? Somebody else producing the list, and right when they walk in the office, you hand them a list, call these people,
right,
and hold you accountable. That system just removed excuse.
Wow.
Yeah.
But that person still has to go sit in their office and overcome their emotion to make that phone call.
Some people also have separate offices that you go into that don't have computers with Cabela's and, Nike.com and things like that, can
or
confuse
emails.
somebody,
Yes.
or emails or things like that.
Yeah, the distractions, right? Yeah. So, and then I think you asked the question, which is gold too, is so then what do we do with that? So the first thing we all have to do is, and Chad tells an awesome story, he can tell it later about awareness, self-awareness, but we have to understand what are the weaknesses that we have or what we like to do or what don't like to do. And that's where we have to build systems so that then we can do those things, right? We still have to push through with the emotion. So how do we do that? If I'm a very process-oriented person, like I said, my coach reminds me about the end goal and what to do and why I want to do it, which keeps me on track. The process isn't the problem. It's getting back to the emotion that's the problem for me. So we could have a coach. We could also hire to that. So when we understand our strengths and weaknesses, then we hire to that. We have people, especially in your guys' world, we have people who are high energy, like to make sales. We have people who don't like to make sales, right?
Okay.
But what we do is we think the day in the life of a realtor looks like this. So you have to do this, have to do that. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know your industry well enough. But there could be people that are lead generators and people that are, making the phone calls. But sometimes we think it has to look like this. So how do we pair people's energy up with that as well.
Put them on the right seats of the bus, right?
Yep. Where their energy is. So we think about right seats of the bus as roles and responsibilities. We strip that back. We say, where do you get your energy? And where don't you get energy? So they fit in two categories. One builds energy, one builds frustration. We look at those activities. So roles, responsibilities, everything else, we'll start to formulate what somebody does during the day to put them in a spot where they feel energetic.
So that a lot of that comes down to being an introvert or extrovert, things like that, some of the different personality testing, things like that. So are you doing some of that in your businesses to find that out, or are you just organically finding that out as you get to know that person better?
We do. So Patrick Lencioni,
yes,
6 Working Geniuses. That the book, the assessment. I was just working with a client this morning, setting them up to do the same thing. So that's what we use.
Okay, and that's different than any other. What Garrett's talking about here is different than any other type of personality test.
Yes.
Patrick Lencioni's, because his is based on what gives you energy. Yeah. What are you excited about? What drives you? And then understanding, going back to that self-awareness piece, understanding what drives you and then focusing on your areas of expertise.
I like the strengths and weaknesses too. There's going to be some things that, will be a stick in my spoke that's going to be different than what screws Jason up or screws the next person up. There's some people who are a little more introverted. They'll come in the office and they're like, I don't really want to talk to anybody. I just want to go to my office and work, right? But then there could be something in that office. Maybe it's their own phone of something coming back from home or, things like that. Or there's people who are just like, I just get excited to talk to people in the office. So right when they, walk through the door, then, maybe that's the hang up. And so when you start learning about what is, the pebbles in your shoe or the sticks in your spokes that's going to slow you up, I like the idea of having your systems and processes around that. I mean, I know what's going to mess me up, and I'm like, hey, I can't be around that because that's gonna mess me up.
Right. But to be clear, understand the difference between extrovert and introvert. Extroverts, they get energy from people. Mm-hmm. Introverts, it drains them.
Exactly.
Right. So they can both be successful. They just need to understand where are their strengths, and where their weaknesses.
Yeah. And when I started doing this, one of the things I had to kind of accept was that not everything I like to do or hate to do is what everybody else loves to do or hates to do.
Right.
So I remember we were with my leadership team. We're sitting in a conference room, and everybody could see that I was struggling because this one thing was on my to-do list like week after week after week. And so they're trying to love me and hold me accountable, but I'm also their boss, right? And finally, as we're talking about this thing, another member of the team says, hey, do you want me to do that for you? And I was like, why would anybody want to do that? That's like poking my eyes out when I'm thinking about this task. And she says, I would love to do that. And I'm like, really? Wow. And then just by luck, I looked at the thing and I saw something on her to-do list. And I had this epiphany. And I was like, can I do that for you? And she was like, that would be awesome. And her and I, from that moment on, developed this relationship where we just knew. I struggled at the tedious stuff, and she hated to engage with people. And I'm like, okay, I got you.
It's like swapping off each other's lunch plates.
And you know what?
Want to switch sandwiches?
Yeah. And in that moment, like 1,000,000 pounds of pressure came off both of us.
Wow.
And it was, so then now we still work together, and we still, like, if I see something, if she sees something, we know which part of the business we have.
We have an amazing administrative staff on our team. I mean, our success team is what we call them, and they're dialed. And it's funny, Brooke does our transaction coordinating, and she's awesome. But if she'll be the first to admit it. If she has to do something that we are doing, calling somebody multiple times, or to the point where she wouldn't do it. Like it's like enabling, she just couldn't do it. But then there's things that she does, she'll just stare at paperwork and go through paperwork with a fine-tooth comb for 8 hours a day. She barely ever gets sick. Like, and I'm like, man, I would rather chew a broken bottle, than to do that. But it's funny how our strengths and weaknesses often, all the time complement each other, and that's what makes these perfect teams.
Do you want, and I don't know if you guys did it intentionally or not, but do you want me to observe why I think that's effective?
Yeah.
So, an administrative part of our business that we usually don't think about, stick in an office somewhere, and you call them the success team. Okay? So let's go to Rigby football. We have kids playing Rigby football, right? Why is Rigby football so successful? Well, there's a lot of reasons why. But one of the reasons why is because they have an offensive line.
Right.
Who doesn't need to carry the ball across the goal line.
Right.
Who doesn't need to celebrate. Who doesn't need to get player of the game. Who doesn't need to get accolades. But if you go and ask that offensive line or anybody else on the team, what is the most important part to our success? They will know.
Yeah.
And they will tell it's the offensive line.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
And so you guys have created a place where you talk about a team that's so critical to your success as the success team that could go overlooked. Just things just that simple make a big difference for the motivation for somebody to go take you across the goal line. Right.
100%.
So true.
Yeah.
It's interesting. We've had we had a guest on that she was all about words and the power of those words and how they make such a difference. She talked about that test that, they put different word labels on different water bottles, I guess, vials of water, petri dish water, and they looked at the crystals that were forming, and the crystals formed perfectly when it had a label on it, which you would never think, right? It had a label on it. They're all in the exact same environment, except for a label was like love, peace, like all these positive words, and the crystals formed perfectly. And then they had all these other words of hate, anger, destruction, those kind of things, and the crystals were chaotic. And how the power of words can affect us at a cellular level, right? And so it's so important. In fact, she has a clothing line that has the words on the inside of the shirts instead of on the outside, so it touches your skin.
Because our bodies are made of...
Because our bodies are made of water, right? And it's for people who have been trafficked and things like that. But anyway, it was pretty interesting to talk to her and about how, because I'd never really thought about that before, but what you said just reminded me of how important those things are.
Yeah. And this guy's the king of affirmation. I don't know, would you call it affirmation, Chad? You've got that dialed in.
I do, but it's for me because I've got to remind myself all the time. We beat ourselves up so much, and we say we're hard on ourselves. We're really quick to say, I'm not good at that, and why does everyone else have it figured out except me? And Garrett, I've shared with you that Michael Kirby wrote this book called The E-Myth, and years ago, Michael and I were having dinner, and we sat down, and he goes, Chad, how's business going? And I said, to be honest with you, Michael, I'm just making it up as I go. And he started laughing, and I said, Mike, I was pouring my heart out to him, and I'm like, why are you laughing at me? And he goes, Chad, everybody is. Everyone's making it up as they go. Yeah. You think that this individual who's got his business at 100 million knows what he's going to do to get to 200? He's going to figure it out. There's no question. But there's so much of that that's happening in the process. You're building the spaceship as you're flying in it, and that's the reality. But everyone else is so good at beating themselves up and saying like, oh man, I'm not that good. And especially in the real estate game, right? Yeah. Where you sit back and you're engaged in the process, but you're not having the outcomes that maybe other people are. And you're going, wait, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Nothing's wrong with you. You're just in the middle of the process right now. And you hold on, and it's going to happen.
So give an example of your affirmation. I got two things. One is really going to derail us. And this one I think is going to...
what's going to derail us?
It's not like a bad one. It's not, give me an example of your affirmations, because I need to be better at that.
So I've got a list of 25 that I recite daily, right? And one of them is, I'm the greatest teacher of communications, and I go on to say, you know what, I'm a child of God, and I recite all 25 every single day. And I talk about how much money I make every month, and I talk about, all these things within my mind. And I repeat them regularly. And it's amazing. My disposition, my countenance, everything changes. If I'm, and it's everyone's like, well, do you do them in the morning? Yeah, I'll do them in the morning. But in the middle of the day, if I'm beat up, I'll just recite those 25 in my mind. It just reminds me of who I am, and it changes me. It changes me because I remember these things.
So when I was younger, my dad and I, we loved the hot tub. My dad always loved the hot tub. It's where he did his thinking. Early mornings in the hot tubs. And he was like, you want to go to school? And I was like, no, I hate school. And he's like, yeah. He's like, I didn't really like school that much either. But he's like, it's something that helps me a lot. It's like, what? He's like, sometimes I don't really like work. And sometimes I sit in the hot tub and I say, I love my job. 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 I'm like, well, how long do you say it? He's like, until I believe it. And then I get out. And I was like, that's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, right? As a little kid. And well, then I get older and I'm telling Jason, and I'm like, dude, there's sometimes I sit in the hot tub and I have to be like, I love my job. I love my job. I love my job. I love my job.
Right.
And it makes me laugh and almost cry at the same time, but then it does help. Sometimes you have to use those as almost like a foundation of gratitude so that you can be able to do it.
Absolutely.
So,
and you have to remind yourself, I mean, you are great. It's something that we discount in society in general, something we're very good at. It's like, for some reason, we can't think that in our mind, right? Like if you say, I'm a phenomenal speaker, right? People will be like, oh.
Look at the ego on that guy.
Yeah, what's that person's problem, right? But if you say, "Oh, I'm dumb, I'm stupid," yeah, I get that. Everyone embraces that. But when you start declaring things, right? So and Garrett and I have talked about, the Declaration. When you ask people when did the country become free, the United States of America, people will say like 1776. And it's like, no, it wasn't for years later. The declaration of it happened in 1776. So we as a country, we've celebrated declarations for, 250 years. And so we declare things. So when we say we are and then say these things, I am, you're declaring those things. And there is power behind declaration.
I love that. The one thing that to derail it, and if you want to add into that real quick.
So just a couple comments. The reason why it's so important is because we physically can't feel two emotions at the same time. We can't. So emotions start to overtake us, and then our words and affirmations bring in another emotion, which gets rid of the other emotion. Okay. So like sometimes mentally we physically say that because then we feel another emotion, right? And it's just like when we start to trick our body, we put ourselves in good places, right? I actually heard, I'm going to quote 50 Cent right here. I heard him say the other day, he said, depression is a luxury.
Right.
He's like, when I grew up, we didn't have time to be depressed.
Right.
We didn't have money to be depressed. So and I'm not treating the mental illness lightly.
Right.
But I am saying the feeling of depression is a luxury. Because if we'll just get back to work, a lot of times that will go away. Right. And so, but we
aim yourself towards that anxiety of whatever is making you feel that way.
Yep.
To try to solve that issue.
Yep. Like in sports, we always tell the kids, you're not excited, you're not nervous, you're excited. Those are the two same emotions.
Right.
It's just how we frame it and how we talk about it.
Yeah.
But if you go on the field saying, oh, I'm so nervous, bad things are going to happen. But if you go out there saying this energy is excitement,
right.
I'm so excited to go do this, automatically you're going to perform at a different level.
So backtrack, and I like that. This is, hopefully we didn't get too far. What I was talking about derailing, and in a good way that I feel like is a good discussion. I've never really thought about the figuring it out as part of the process. And I think that that's such a key thing that you were talking about is figuring it out. So starting a new business, starting a new real estate business, becoming a new real estate agent, coming into it. I think that that's something that Jason and I have to be better at explaining too, is part of the process is you don't know anything. Understanding that you don't know jack, and you're going to have to start learning these things and accepting that's part of the process. There's different parts of this process, and these are the things you need to do, but understand that you're not going to understand why you need to do these things, but you need to have the blind faith and you need to do it. But there's a process, which is the hardest part, and that's figuring out. I think that's why most people quit. We made the joke of having goals and then restarting goals, or why you can't quit. But I think that's why most people quit, is because that process sometimes feels like you're in a fog or a dark room, like you can't see, and you have to just trust to take one step forward as far as you can see to come out of it. But I thought that was a really great point that you had.
Well, but I think that goes back to Garrett's outcome, importance of outcome that he was discussing a moment ago, where if you know the outcome and you know what you're looking to accomplish, you're going to figure out the process. You're going to figure out a way to make that happen. Now, and again, to Garrett's point, you may not have all the answers. You may not get energy from all those things, but if you bring in the right members of your team, they get excited. And if you're looking to build a team, and you want a team like the Greider-Peterson team, when you're bringing people in, you help them know that, hey, this is where we're going. We don't have it all figured out, but we know you're going to help us get there. People will be excited about that, rather than just like, hey, we got this figured out. We need you to be a cog in this operation. It's like.
But think
That's
about
so
it.
true.
Like, think about it. When our goal of yesterday is not the goal of tomorrow, because it's growth.
Right.
So just by very definition of having a growth mindset means what we did yesterday won't work tomorrow. So we have to figure it out. So like Chad's saying, when we start growing stuff with our team, just the fact of rallying around that concept helps everybody feel comfortable that we are all figuring it out. Even us. Like, I think it starts with us as leaders being vulnerable and saying, I don't have this all figured out. I always tell everybody, like, when you see a duck out on the water, what do you see? You see this peaceful duck out on the water, but what's happening underneath?
Kicking the hell.
Just churning.
Yeah. And that's everybody, including myself. Like, I may sit here and lead you with confidence and tell you I know where we're going, but underneath everything is the churning of the thinking. And sometimes I have to commit to something, so I go figure it out.
When you say that, I remember driving around and my dad talking to different people, starting new businesses, having new ventures, trying new endeavors or whatever. And I remember people telling him kind of what they're doing and what it's taking. And they're like, man, we're going to do this development and it's going to cost, $3 million. And we just signed on this loan. And this is what we're doing. We drive. My dad's like, man, I bet that guy's nervous as hell. And that's exactly what he means, right? Yeah. Like, the guy comes, he's like, oh, yeah, we're going to do this many lots, this many units. And then we're leaving. He's like, whew. Well, that guy's like, that's a big bite, right? Yep. And so sometimes we get worried. And I think that I like that, the figuring it out, because I think it's safe to all agree that that's where a lot of people give up, because sometimes these bites seem too big and they can't figure out how to do it. And then there's those who are just mastered of just eating those big plates, just figuring it out. Just, I can take that and that's not going to be an issue. And I can do this, and this, and this, and this, and this.
Yeah, but what Garrett said there, the key was that he says, I commit. I commit to something. And if you're all in and you're fully committed, everyone has different levels of commitment. But when Garrett says, I commit so that I can figure it out, that's real. He's gonna commit to figure that out. Then have the vulnerability to ask questions. Years ago, I was in the financial services industry, and we were doing this deal for this large company. And I had no clue what I was doing. So I brought in somebody else, right? And I was like, you got to help me out here. And so we sat at this table, and everyone's sitting around the table. I'm like, I know none of you know what he's saying, because I'm in the business and I don't know what he's saying, right? But there was one individual who kept asking questions. He's like, I don't understand that. Explain that to me more. I don't understand that. And in my mind, I thought to myself, that's the smartest guy in the room right there. The rest of you are clueless. I know you're clueless, but you're nodding your head, thinking about the game tonight, pretending like you know what he's talking about. The only one who really is smart in this room is that individual. Right. And so having that vulnerability to say, hey, I don't understand that. Help me understand that. That takes courage. But those are the most successful people.
Especially when you're supposed to be the expert.
Right.
Right?
Right.
You know, people are coming to you and you're like, well, I'm not sure about that. Let me find out for you. But then you've got to commit to be able to do that and come back, and you're smarter for it.
And I don't think anybody ever thinks, they didn't know and they had to figure it out. And, you know, like they just care about that answer, and they're like, okay, awesome. And they're like, the person got me the answer. They don't care where it came from.
True.
Yep.
You actually gain trust.
Oh, no, go ahead.
No, I was just say you gain trust from people when they do that. Like if you were at a doctor and you had a situation with your knee and the doctor goes, you know, to be honest with you, I've never seen this before. I'm going to consult with some experts on that. You actually would have greater confidence in the doctor because he's like, you know what, I haven't seen this, but I'm going to consult with some of the top experts. We'll get you the right answer. You're like, okay, right? Rather than, I think it's, and then they're blowing smoke and you're like, I know you have no clue what you're talking about, right? Yeah. And that trust goes out the window.
So let's go full circle on that, right? So it's not the figuring it out part. It's the confidence part. So we've used confidence a lot, right?
Right.
So whether somebody's got it figured out or not is really not what's at stake. What's at stake is the confidence that they go about it, right? So how do we build that confidence? It's how we talk to ourselves. It's how we see ourselves, right?
Right.
So there's beauty in the process and figuring it out, but the confidence is what leads us there. Now, if we're talking to ourselves a certain way, hopefully we all believe in an energy that's bigger than us. So we start talking about ourselves. We start talking about the world. We start talking about everything else. We have this confidence that aligns. So when I say I'm going to commit and figure it out, I know I'm going to figure it out. A, because I know I am the person that I am that will figure it out. B, I know the energy that aligns with me will help me figure it out and put things in my path to make it happen. And now I can speak with confidence to go do that. So that's us after years and years of building this confidence. So the question becomes, how does somebody start without confidence? Because I look at sometimes my kids, I look at people that come and work for me, they don't have that confidence, and I can't just hand it to them. So what do we do? Yeah. Now we go back to process. So why is process so important?
To build
because
the confidence.
We get little wins.
Yeah.
We get little wins. You know what is most detrimental? Chad talks about talking to yourself, killer. However, the most detrimental thing is when we make promises to ourselves and we don't keep it. Because no matter what we say, now we've built in our own self-worth. Yeah. If I said I'm going to get up and go to the gym and I don't do it, I lied to myself. And deep down inside, that hurts. That hurts.
And you carry it.
You do. So I create process so that I can get little wins. And little wins lead to big wins. And then pretty soon, all of a sudden, I've got confidence.
And those little wins
That's huge.
Come in fact of experience, right?
Yes.
And now you're gaining experience. And it may be just a game of inches, right?
Yep.
But you're getting it. And then you fail a few times, figure it out, and then that becomes your knowledge.
Yep.
So then when you gain experience and knowledge over time, you become, really the best or the expert or whatever it is you want to be.
Right.
I think for me, a big part of that is the weekly reviews or however you want to do that. If it's daily, if it's weekly, if it's monthly, whatever it is, but consistent reviews of your week and your day, not only to see, okay, what didn't work and to trying to change that, or what did work, let's do more of that, let's double down on that, but also just those little wins. Otherwise, I think we can go through and not even recognize those little wins sometimes, right? And so I think recognizing those can really help move you forward in that confidence.
Yeah, I love that. Love that.
Dan Sullivan, shoot, I'm probably going to butcher that. I think The Gap in the Gain, the book. So he goes through and talks about whether we focus on the gap or the gain, right? Mm-hmm. Most of us are built, I am, to focus on the gap. Like, I got to fill this gap, figure it out, fix this. Interestingly enough, when they tracked it, and then the other one is the gain, like how far have we come? Well, they track it both ways, and there actually wasn't a substantial difference at the end with either way you look at it. But you know what did change? The happiness of the individual that are
Really?
right?
Okay.
So, like you said, talk yourself into go to work every day, or put ourselves in places where we understand our energy and we're excited to show up every day. Sometimes it's just the way we talk to ourselves. Like, are we stuck in the gap, or are we focused on the gain? We get to the same place either way.
Well, and you mentioned it a little bit, but I also think it's how we prepare ourselves for the day, right? Like if we could wake up a little earlier, we could give ourselves some affirmations. We could relax a little bit as we get ready instead of being in a big hurry, because that's not going to ever excite you when you're, feel like you're running.
Right.
And so I feel like also you need to plan that just a little bit as part of the process. What's going to put me in the best situation to win? What's going to, we talked about a little bit, and we talk about athletes, right? Real estate agents have a great opportunity to make professional athlete kind of money. And if you're not, like, when you think of a professional athlete, what is it that they're doing to prepare themselves for the game? Very few of them just show up and just kind of go through the motions. I mean, they're pretty dialed if they're serious about it. So are we pretty dialed and serious about it? Because I mean, it sounds silly, but it really is. When somebody told me that, we have the chance to make some really good money in this thing. How are we preparing ourselves and getting ourselves ready to do it?
I love that. And there's a lot there, and we're getting close on time.
Oh, yeah. And all 4 microphones work.
That's great. They worked really, really well.
So we should probably wrap this up, and we're going to do a part 2 to this. So stay tuned to next week, and we'll have part 2. And but we want to thank these guys so much for being on the show with us again. And every time it's just things and notes and things that I want to do and implement in my own life. So I appreciate you guys for being here.
Absolutely.
Thank you.